Welcome to the Echo Sportscast Spotlight.
I'm Paul McLean.
And I'm Dave Dale. Today we have retired teacher and current continuing coach, Chippewa Ravens, Greg Richardson. Thanks for coming to the studio.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Been around the rinks quite a bit over the last 20 years, I imagine?
Yeah, quite a few. It's been, I started actually, as most coaches do. I mean, when I was in my early years of teaching, my hockey coaching was surrounded around my son, Brett, and started out in East Nipissing Vipers. The Tyke program, moving on into, I think we had novice. We played novice house league, and eventually we played, coached an Adam team, and then we moved to North Bay for the Adam AA program, which I jumped on board with a couple of guys there, Glenn Kraft and Jim McAuliffe, and we had that team, or the core of that team, essentially till they were minor peewee, and then when they became major peewees, we gave that up to a non-parent coach, because as soon as you add another A to a team, the craziness begins. So we felt it was best to hand that off, and thankfully Scott Hike stepped up to the plate and took that group for the rest of the way. That then allowed me basically to get more involved and start up or restart the high school hockey program at Chippewa.
Were you out in East Nipissing for Tykes when Mike Stoffish's team came to our tournament?
Think so.
What years were
Brett's
you
in 04, and Jack he's got to be in 02.
Oh, okay, so a couple of years difference.
Yeah.
Well, Mike brought a pretty stacked Tyke team to our tournament, and it was a couple of the players on his team didn't know about the tournament. It was off after the season.
Yeah,
and it caused quite a stir, because I think his team ran the tables with everybody, and we had to sort of reconsider how we're going to run Tyke tournaments.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the big name that we had when we were there was Ben Gaudreau was our goalie.
Right.
I mean, at that age, normally you had the set of equipment and you rotated around with the different kids to get a taste. And but Ben had the full gear, and he knew he was going to be a goalie, and obviously he made the right choice.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's funny with Ben. I still remember meeting Ben and his mom Charlotte being in the store trying on like a chest protector, and he was, kind of some of his first equipment after they'd given it to him from the league, and he was starting to buy his own stuff and get into it. And yeah, it was really amazing to watch him go from here to all the way up to here, both in height and where his hockey playing has taken him. But
you really developed an exceptional program with Chippewa. You had some excellent guys on the bench from East Nipissing as well, the Hodgson brothers.
Yeah, Bill and Brian. They came on board right away. We had another gentleman by the name of Tom Murphy who was with us for several years as well. It was no problem finding help once we got the program back up and going. Like I said, Bill and Brian stepped up right away. Brian is still with us. He works with our goalies, and so he's been with us right through. And now we have a couple other teachers from Chippewa that have stepped up, and our co-coaches with me. And it's been great. Lots of help along the way. I always said when I was coaching, I'm going to coach, but I'm not going to do it at the expense of missing my son's games. And we always said, we have 4, sometimes 5 coaches. If you need to miss, you need to miss. Right? Mm-hmm. And so we did that. It's been really fun. We started off with not a lot of talent, I'm going to say, and I hope if any of the kids from that year end up listening.
I remember the goalie that kept you in the games.
Oh my goodness, yes.
What was his name?
We've been blessed. We've been absolutely blessed with goaltending. I think we've been able to instill a good defensive game in our kids, but. A good goaltender goes a long way. Cole Leon was our goalie, and he was our only goalie, and he had just decided to give up AAA hockey, and we had bought nice beautiful pro jerseys that Paul's store.
I remember designing some of those.
Oh my goodness,
fun.
they were awesome.
Great colors, and kind of got the chance to, work with it. I think high school has some great colors, and it was fun.
I think it was Cole was. League MVP or something like that, or
he was league MVP. Yeah. We were last in the league. We didn't get blown out, obviously, and that had a lot to do with Cole. And that's kind of why I'm referring to the jersey, is because we had our white homes and our red aways and the nice big Raider logo on the front. And we used to joke that Cole's jersey was actually black by the end of the season because
That
he
was
saw so many
lot of
shots, a lot of rubber. And he was the league MVP, top goaltender. It was unanimous. Like the other teams just, like I said, there's they would have died to have a goalie like that. So
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember covering that. It was great.
Talk about like what happened to the Chippewa hockey program and how hard was it to bring it back?
So first off, I was a grade 7-8 teacher, so my whole career teaching was grade 7 and 8, and I didn't arrive to Chippewa until the 2009-2010 season. School year. I refer to school years as seasons. So we arrived there. That's when they shut down Centennial and made it Alliance. So we moved over and became a 7 to 12 school, which was the new model in our board, and so. I wasn't really privy to a lot of what happened beforehand. Bob Bowl is the mainstay of Chippewa hockey, and he'd probably be a better guy to talk about that. But he basically just said it was a numbers game, right? We had a few kids that were interested, but not enough. I think the last year before we had a team, and I could be wrong on this, but before we had a team, prior to me the goalie was Kenny Appleby. So, I mean, when I say we were blessed with goaltenders, like we were blessed with goaltenders. We had, obviously Kenny back then, and then that team fizzled out. And then we started up again in 2013 was when we started the program up again, and we had Cole Leon. So had a goalie, and we said we're gonna make this work. And we had some really hardworking kids that just battled every single game and kept games close. Like there was nothing to be ashamed about, and we didn't get blown out any games. And and then the following year, once you have a program established, or kids see that you're going to have a team on a consistent basis, they start thinking, that's an option for me next year. And so we'd start talking to kids, and then so we ended up, building the following year we started building a younger team. And I remember, I guess it was 15, 16 that we made it to the final against Whitfield, lost. But then the following years, in the 2017 year, was when we won our first title with that group. And they were a very special group too. Lots of good kids there that I'm still in contact with. And it's just kind of cyclical. You just hope that you have enough kids to fill in the spots that you lose from the year before. Last year's team, we won the NDA title as well. Fortunate enough to have 11 of those boys come back this year, which is fantastic. But from a team building perspective, next year is going to be starting from scratch again. And that's kind of what I enjoy. I enjoy, okay, we're going to have a bunch of grade 10 and 11s this year, and we're going to work them through till they're grade 12, possibly their victory lap year, and see where we can take them. And so far, we already know that we have several kids that are playing Bantam Double A this year that fully intend on coming out next year. So it's just trying to keep an interest in the school and let kids know that there's going to be a program. And we do a lot of different things. The junior hockey day, we call it a junior tournament. We run that one-day tournament exhibition series, and all it is just to get kids out onto the ice wearing their school colors, seeing what it's like to be part of a high school hockey team and playing against grade 9 and 10s and getting a taste of it. And to be quite honest with you, that's the time that I don't call it tryouts, but that's the time where I say, you know what, Dave, if you want to play high school hockey next year, you have a spot on my team. Because if you don't tell kids in the spring that you have a spot on that team, you can't start a high school hockey team in the fall anymore. That used to be the way it was done. Yep. But now with hockey being, 13 months of the year, it's you have to tell kids at the same time as the regular tryouts whether you have a spot for them or not. Yeah, so for us, that has been the key, is really having a heartbeat on the rate from grade 7 and 8, seeing which hockey players are coming in. Most of the AAA players we don't end up chasing down too much. If they fall into our lap, that's fantastic. We had the Bradley boys last year that fell into our lap, and that certainly helped us. But we don't generally do that because we know most of them are trying to pursue that level of hockey. And when I see an A or double A student come into our school, I'm like, okay, we need to talk to them. We got to get them out for some skates. And we oftentimes, if we're short players for practice, we'll get those kids to come out and just get a taste of it.
Well, I guess West Ferris Trojans are going to have to figure out how to do that because they've been out of it for a few years, and it's kind of a sad thing.
It is. It is. I mean, there's a couple guys there that have certainly made an effort at it, and I have to take their word for it that they say they don't have enough players. I haven't been in that school myself for many years. I know they have tons of football players, but that doesn't always translate to hockey. So, I mean, like I said, I think you need a champion, somebody that's willing to take the bull by the horns and start from the bottom up. And I'm not saying those guys aren't. I'm not saying that at all. I think you need. It's really helpful to have somebody in the school too that knows the kids and can sort of have those conversations and talk to them about, if you're really looking at options for you, like we're going to have a hockey team next year. Is that something that interests you, type thing, and get those commitments right there and then. So,
I think you also mentioned too, just about in your situation having that coaching staff that allows for, I've got to go follow my son.
That's right.
And I know, you've had, Brandon Grube comes to mind because first being transferred out, that's a job thing. That wasn't, any choice. That kind of came down to a number. So he was the champion of that program. And then he gets transferred out for a year before coming back. And now he's busy as well coaching his son.
Absolutely.
He was coaching my son last year and doing an amazing job with that and providing a great experience for the kids. So then to come back and try to do that in addition to the other duties is really difficult.
It's not easy. And you talk about the coaches, like Stan Butler used to say to us, do you have a coach for every player, Greg? Because he'd come in and watch some of our games because they'd be practicing after us or whatever. And, there'd be like 4 or 5 red jackets behind the bench. But, to me, that's what you want to have. You want to have people involved and you want to have people working with kids. And the more guys you can have on the ice to work with kids, the better the kids are going to be. So, and not only that, as you mentioned, it's supporting each other so that you're not stuck to that spot and you can go and do other things when other things arise. And that might be an issue. That probably is an issue at West Ferris right now in terms of getting enough support out to coach. But I'm pretty confident that they'll end up with a team eventually.
Talk about the importance of and the role high school hockey plays in North Bay as a community, knowing the landscape of what actually doesn't exist anymore. As far as what role does high school hockey play in North Bay?
So I've always said that, high school hockey takes the place of midget A, midget AA. When you get to the midget level, you're either playing house league. I guess it's not midget anymore. I'm not allowed to say that, am I? It's U18. But when you get to U18, you're either playing house league or you're playing AAA. So, and nothing's wrong with playing either, but there's a big group of student or players that fall kind of in the middle. They say, well, you know what, I'd like a little bit more than house league, but I'm really not a AAA player and there's some kids that just could be AAA players, but choose not to. And that's where the high school league plays its role, I believe. Unfortunately, I think, all schools are, like it's a 3-team league this year, right? We've already discussed, Ferris doesn't have a team. Franco Cite had a team last year, but not this year. So it just sort of ebbs and flows with the numbers. But it definitely plays a big role or takes a place of the AAA program that's lacking in North Bay.
Running teams in 2024 is a lot different than ever with social media and other things that are going on in the world for kids. How do you manage to navigate through this changing sort of generational challenge?
I don't know when it comes to sports if they've changed that drastically, to be honest with you. Yes, social media, their phones are constantly on them. But even as adults, I think we have to look at ourselves and say, like, my wife even tells me, Greg, put your phone down. And it's just kind of what our society has morphed into. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's just the kids. I think it's our society as a whole. Mm-hmm. And, there are times where we have to, we'll be in a dressing room and it's the intermission, which is just a flood basically. And, you want to go over a couple of things with the kids and you go in there and they have their phones out. And they're not all of them, but some of them are, checking to see what their girlfriend's doing or this sort of thing. And, we tell them, put them away. We don't need those out right now. They shouldn't be out in the dressing room to begin with, but it hasn't really been a true issue with our teams. But we always do remind kids about after a game, we don't want to see any nonsense on social media, talking about the other team or talking about what happened and all that sort of thing. I said, you're representing not just your school, you're representing yourself, you're representing your family, so do it properly.
Mm-hmm. And probably an important part of that too, from a teaching aspect, is they're young. They don't necessarily understand the power of what that contains in their hands, and what you say now when you're young and you still haven't experienced enough of the world to understand how much that can come back to bite you later on. So it's definitely important. To
might have been more of an issue, say 10 years ago, when it was a little newer and there was fewer sort of guidelines for everybody. Because I remember when my son was in high school hockey, it became quite the social media battle out there between teams and players, and there was a lot of shit going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we have one player that every year there's one player that says, well, can I run the Chippewa hockey Instagram? And I'm like, you can, but the minute I see anything that's inappropriate or derogatory to a person or a school or a team, then it's done. It's over. And to be honest with you, I think the kids are pretty well versed now on what. That doesn't mean they're perfect by any stretch. They mistakes get made as with anybody, but they've been pretty good with it.
So we're doing this interview on the Wednesday, right before the NDA hockey tournament, 49th, I believe.
Yeah, somewhere around there, I think. I'm not too sure.
I think it's the 49th annual, and you guys, there's 8 teams involved. This is going to come out Friday, hopefully right before the semifinals in the afternoon at the Gardens. And then I think the championship game's at 7?
7 or 7:30, I think. Schedule's changed numerous times, so I believe it's in the 7 o'clock hour.
If you show at 7 and it's not till 7:30, have a popcorn maybe.
Yeah. As long as the concession stand's open.
Yeah, who knows?
That's always a good tournament.
It's always been a great tournament. I was mentioning to you guys prior to the show here that Anthony Loretto deserves a lot of credit for this tournament. He ran it for many years. I don't know exactly how many, but I know he ran it for many. Well, he was a teacher and a coach, and he even did it for a few years after he retired. The last couple of years has been Luke Villeneuve from Odyssey. Luke came to NDA, so to speak, and said, "You know what? We don't have a team, but I'd like to be involved in helping out in NDA. Is there anything that I can do?" And it just so happened that Anthony was ready to step away, and Bob Bowl said, "Well, you know what? You should probably talk to Anthony about this NDA hockey tournament if you'd be interested in doing that." And Luke said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I think the first year he kind of shadowed Anthony, and then last year he ran it on his own, and this year he ran it on his own. So, big kudos to Luke. He's a good guy, and we really appreciate him taking this on, because to try to run a tournament while you're coaching is a difficult thing to do. It's an 8-team tournament. There's the 3 North Bay teams, a team from the Sioux, and 4 teams from Sudbury. So it'll give us a good chance to see our NASA competition.
And only a few games at West Ferris Arena.
Yeah, I think there's 2 on the schedule, only at West Ferris Arena, which is good.
Let's talk about West Ferris Arena, because
why don't we?
It's a hard place for high school hockey.
Yes.
At that age, the one side you're going to break shoulders. There's no give to those boards in the glass, and it's just not really set up for big boys these days.
No, it isn't at all. It's something we talk about every year. At one time, NDA hockey was the show in town on Wednesday nights at Memorial Gardens. And I'm not blaming the battalion, because my family's been a supporter of the battalion. But once they got here, the dynamics changed for everybody in terms of the Gardens ice that was available. So it kind of trickled down, and I think on the ice allocation, high school hockey is the second lowest in terms of priority, which is kind of upsetting, because in high school hockey here in North Bay in its heyday, and in the heyday, I played a couple of years of high school hockey. We had decent crowds, but my dad's generation, when they played back in the 60s, there was good crowds. It was a place to go and the place to be. And, it dates back that far, but that high school hockey was always played at the Gardens at least one night a week. I think all their games are actually played there, but Wednesday night was the big thing. You'd have the double headers. That got taken away from us, and we got plunked at the West Ferris Arena, and there was really not a whole lot we could do. Thankfully, Bob Bowl works tirelessly with Nicole at the Gardens, and we get our ice allocation, and then we're always just kind of picking up scraps and finding times that we can play at the Gardens. And this year, it's actually worked out quite well for our league schedule. For one, there's not as many games because it's just a 3-team loop. We play each other 7 times, which is not ideal, but it's, we have to have...
It's great for the video clips. I'm looking forward to when the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you could probably get those video clips sooner than the playoffs. But this year we decided, okay, well, you know what? There's 9:30 time slots on a Friday night. There's 9:30 time slots on a Saturday night. And as coaching staffs, and I'm not just talking about Chippewa, I'm talking about Algonquin and Scollard as well, all agreed that yes, we'll take those times. So kudos to the coaches, because that's 9:30 at night on a weekend, which is family time for a lot of people and social time. And the coaches from all 3 schools were unanimous in saying, it's more important for us to play at Memorial Gardens, and if it means having to play later at night, like we played after the Lakers game a couple weeks ago, and that was fine. I mean, we still had a lot of fans in the stands. It was quite good. So. So is it a battle we're going to win to get back to the Gardens on Wednesday night? Probably not, but we're making the best of it and trying to find time slots that we can get the majority of our games. I think this year each team maybe has 2 games at West Ferris Arena. The rest are all at the Gardens, so we're happy with that. But you're right; it's that arena, in my personal opinion, shouldn't be used for any kind of contact hockey over Pee Wee.
Yeah,
it's you mentioned the brick wall at the end, the lobby end. I think I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago. I know Scollard had probably 3 players with separated shoulders.
Yeah,
and it wasn't that there were big, huge hits. It was just that there is absolutely no give.
It's got a roof above it. Like you actually skate under a 3-foot overhang from the upstairs thing, so there's no give.
Pretty solid.
It's got a 20-foot neutral zone.
Yeah, because
I think at one point, and I'm guessing it dates back to when the when the battalion came and they moved at that time Junior A Trappers, formerly Skyhawks, played there briefly before moving to Mattawa, and I think they moved the neutral zone so tight to try to allow for more offensive zone stuff, but it just it's not conducive to that kind of hockey.
It's not at all, and it kind of blows me away because I always talk with my buddies, like guys like Darren Stevenson, Rob Laddiser, Wayne Walsh, Todd Horton. These are all guys that we played juvenile AAA. That was back before the Great North Midget League. So a couple of those guys, lads, and those guys are a year older than us, but a lot of us as major midgets went and played on the juvenile AAA team because it was essentially that league, the Tri-Tem Juvenile League was, I would equate it to what the NOJHL is right now. The NOJHL didn't exist back then. So that juvenile AAA league, which was the Highway 11 North corridor. There's us, there was Sturgeon Falls, not Temiskaming Shores, New Liskeard, Haleberry, Kirkland Lake, and then the Quebec teams got involved. We had Rouen, Noranda was there, and Timmins, who we ended up playing against them in playdowns and that sort of thing. But anyways, getting back to what I was saying, like we played juvenile AAA in that rink, which and just blows my mind now when I think back. I just saw Todd Horton the other day and I said, how in the heck did we play in that arena? But it was a different game. Like it definitely rougher than what it is nowadays. But at the same time, when somebody was forechecking, you had a stick right across their belly and slowing them down. And so there's more clutching and grabbing back then than there is nowadays. But even like the speed of the game is so quick now. And a lot of kids have grown up not really knowing how to not put themselves in a bad situation along the boards, away from the boards, turning into the boards. And I would say that that's at any level, not just at the high school level or house league level, or, well, there's
NHLers right now turning towards the boards in very dangerous situations.
Absolutely. So if you're playing contact hockey, you've got to know where the safe places are and the spots that are danger areas and how far away to be from the boards and know your space. I always talk to our kids about, when you don't, the most important time on the ice, in my opinion, is when you don't have the puck. You need to know who's around you, right? And so our first game against Scholar the other night was, or a couple of weeks ago, was at the Gardens, and it was physical, but nothing crazy. But when you get into that West Ferris arena, I call it the equalizer, because you could be a really strong team, and then you could be a mediocre team, and you can give that strong team a run for its money just because you're clogging up the ice. So that first year that we played, we wanted to play at West Ferris Arena, and then when you have a skilled team, you want to be at the Gardens. So no, it's definitely not ideal playing there, but the coaches from all three schools, and Bob Boyle, again, I can't sing his praises enough for what he does for convening. He's a behind the scenes kind of guy, but he makes things happen.
I covered the Canada Panthers hockey team when Lads and Horton and Mike Reese were on it. And they actually had some games there at West Ferris.
Yeah.
And, of course, you certainly want to be on the Gardens with a bunch of those big guys in college. There was like Wally Manitowoc.
Yeah.
And he was just laying guys out like 10 men.
I think, too, I always equate it to I don't hear it even as much as I used to now either, but the people that don't want to wear face masks when they play hockey. I can't see the puck. I can't do that. And my comment was always back to them, well, it's not you that you have to worry about. It's not an indication of your skill as a player. It's the fact that so many, and I count myself in that group of people who grew up, there was never, even at that time, the Ontario Junior Hockey League was full face mask. So generations of kids growing up, and there's no repercussion for just waving a stick around in the air. You get a 2-minute penalty, you didn't knock somebody's teeth out. And so when those players start mixing at the older ages with it, but it's just that accountability. The bigger the shoulder pads got, the harder you could hit somebody. But now you just have to be able to know that what you've got for protection and what is going to be out there is going to indicate how hard you can go or what you can do, and the player safety.
Oh, you talk about those shoulder pads. What about, I guess we're dating ourselves, but going back to those years when I was like the Jaffa elbow pads, they were bricks. They were composite almost. And you get hit in the head with those, you felt it, I don't know. Do they even make them like that anymore?
Everything's kind of toned down a lot. They've taken a lot of that padding out, but yeah, so you could play that way. And again, it did, like you said, it slowed the game down. So, and now these kids with the skill, I watched a practice the other night. Scholar happened to be there, and some of these guys are just look so big on that ice. You're watching men play, and it's 5-6 strides, and you're from one end of the rink to the other. That's just how fast and powerful the game's become, and it's changed. So, with that speed, it makes it impossible to play in a rink that small.
Exactly.
We're at the wrap-up stage for this podcast interview, and I want to know how your son's doing.
He's doing quite well, actually. He's enjoying university life. He's second year Kines at Ottawa U. He is now officially in the beer leagues. And that was his own choice. His last year was he did play a little bit of junior B last year. Arm Pryor chased him down to play with them, and I think he tried to explain to them that school's his commitment now, and he wouldn't be able to be there all the time and that sort of thing. But the junior B league there, they pretty much, if you're an older guy, and they'll take you if you can. They'll take you if you can be there 50% of the time. So he did that a little bit last year. The year prior was his year in Pembroke with the Lumber Kings, and he really enjoyed his time there. But after that season, he essentially made the decision. He said, Mom, Dad, he says, a lot of my friends are already at university. They're having a great time. He says, I could stay in Pembroke till I was, 20, 21 years old or whatever it is. But all my friends will be done school.
Yeah.
And that type of thing. So he wanted to enjoy that university life. So, first year kinesiology, he experienced living in residence. A good friend of his, Ann Ringette, who he played midget hockey with, lived with him. And then, he had that taste of playing a little bit of competitive hockey in Arm Pryor. He did that with Jake Fullerton, who was another ex-trapper and good friend of his that they both went together. And Jake and Brad actually have a lawn care business. I'm going to put a little plug in there.
Go ahead.
705 Lawn Care.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so they've been doing that for the last 4 summers. So, anyways, just want to put that plug in. But yeah, him and Jake did that last year, and then this year, I guess Arn Pryor still had his junior B rights, so to speak, and they're like, okay, well, Ottawa West wants you, or so and so wants you. Like it'll be close to the university, and you can play there. And Brett just says, no. He says, I'm done. I'm playing lug. He's playing lug hockey now, so he's playing with all his buddies, and they're having a great time. And it's a fairly competitive league, from what I understand. He's also refereeing.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so he wanted to do that. He's refereeing intramurals for now. He's been sort of taken under the wing of the head official there, and it's really kind of opened his eyes a lot. Like he said to us when he was home on reading week, he said, I really have a different view now of referees, and he says, you should go a lot easier on them, Dad. And so we laughed, and I said, I understand what you're saying. I understand. But he says, no, truly, it's not an easy job. And he said, but he's really enjoying it and doing multiple games. I guess he did a game last weekend. There was it was between the med students and the law students at Ottawa U. So he wasn't scheduled to do it. He was asked to do it, but he didn't really respond. And the guy phoned him up, the head official, and said, Brett, I really need you to do this. So, okay, fine, we'll do it. So he did it. If there wasn't a line brawl. So he says it was the most electric game he'd ever been involved in terms of, like witnessing type thing. And he says it was just crazy because, of course, the fans are in the stands and all the extracurriculars that go on. The extracurriculars that go on in university and that sort of thing. He says, so it was just wild. And he really enjoyed it. So, I've said to him, I said, that could be an avenue for you to pursue. Like they're always looking for ex-junior players that
understand the game, can keep up with the flow, get the, I know talking to Stephen Walcom about that, that's a big push from the NHL side where, and this is nothing to say negatively about the, career officials or the ones that start at such a young age and maybe didn't get that junior hockey experience, but there's just no substitute for understanding everything at that pace of play and what's going on and being able to see it before it happens.
Exactly, and that's the thing, right? They are fast tracking some players like that through the system because they have those skills already. I don't think is Russ Moyer doing any more linesing of junior games, but I know he was fast tracked super fast. And rightfully so. I mean, a very skilled and knowledgeable hockey guy. But, I don't know if he still is or not.
Well, I mean, Russ has got Cal as in Hockey for Beginners right now. So, and really busy with his work with, because he's kind of the community police officer doing that program. So, but yeah, you're right. Like those guys, that's who they've got to get back in. And we've got to restock the barn of officials as everyone gets older and retires, and really critical to the game to have them. So, yeah. Well,
and that's the thing, right? And you talk about, restocking officials. When you look at refereeing, like even the group that referees our games, they're an older group. And as much as we, and even myself, I'm going to put myself there, might complain occasionally, we're thankful to have them because there's not a lot of officials out there. You look at NDA baseball, who does 99.9% of all the NDA baseball games?
Dave Saad and
Louis Reese. They're no spring chickens either. Sorry, Dave, but it's the truth. He'll get a chuckle out of that. But it's true. We do need to replenish them. I just saw on Facebook last night my ex-neighbor, Charles Conta. I don't think he'll mind me mentioning his name, but I
saw the post.
Yeah, he's hung up his whistle and his jersey because he's tired of being accosted by parents in the stands and in the parking lot, and it's going to become a very big problem. It probably already is a big problem. I think it is.
Yeah.
But it's not going to get better if we still have that attack mentality on them when they're especially when they're leaving an arena.
Yeah, well, they're not there for you to abuse, right? And yes, I think I've yelled at a ref once or twice myself, but you have to mature eventually, and I think I have.
Yeah,
and there's good reasons, and to know the refs, and I know the crew that does high school, they do their best.
Yeah,
and it's a fluid situation out there, so they're managing some aggressive teenagers and some coaches that really feel that the game's very important. So they know that. Everybody's got to dial it down just a little bit.
Which brings us back to the West Ferris Arena. So you put 3 officials out there amongst, 12 high school hockey players on the West Ferris Arena. Like I've said to Paul and Lindsay and Dave, like, how do you know where to go to be safe? Like literally, there's no place to go without.
I counted them getting hit by pucks about 5 times.
Yeah,
just in one period, right?
Yep.
The guys are just turning and wailing it upside the boards, and they're ducking for their lives.
That's where they've got to be because there's no room to be in the middle of the ice. They're going to get run over. So pick your poison. Well,
I'm glad to ask you that question about your son then, because that helps us wrap up on an important subject like refereeing. Yeah. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Great having you come.
Hopefully, we'll have you in again at near the end of the season there, right with the playoffs, and we'll get it all.
Yes, and should mention we are hosting NASA this year too, so that's that would be good. We could chat some more later on.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to our Sportscast Spotlight.
I'm Paul McLean.
And I'm Dave Dale. Please like and comment and share, because that's what we need you to do.